Hello and welcome back once again to CBR MTG. My name is Angus Mackay. I'm joined here by Frank Karamarudis.
Hi, I'm here today.
Hooray! We are playing Legendary Mud versus Food Chain. Stephen Song versus on Legendary Mud and Beckett Wolf on Food Chain. We've seen Food Chain before, but we haven't seen Beckett play it. So let's see how Beckett goes. It does play...
Oh, look at that. He just showed us his hand. I wish every
this is actually the combo, right? He has a Force of Will and a Misthollow Griffin. So for anyone who doesn't know, Food Chain is an enchantment, the namesake of the deck. 3 mana for an enchantment.
2 and a green.
2 and a green, that's right. And it says exile a card from the battlefield. Exile a creature card that you control from the battlefield. You get that much mana of any color plus 1. So if you cast Misthollow Griffin from exile and then exile it again for mana and then exile it again for mana, you get infinite mana.
So the important thing to note is that there are 2 cards in the deck that can be played from exile.
Yeah.
And they specifically say that. So you have Misthollow Griffin, which is 2 blue, and it's a 3/3 flying, and it says it just can be played from exile. And you have Eternal Scourge?
Scourge.
It's the accent.
Yeah.
Which is 3 colorless mana, and for a 2/2?
Yeah.
It's just a creature. The point is that
point is that it makes you infinite mana, which is important because then you can use that to win with Walking Ballista. Also, it makes your creatures like super resilient. So you know you can bring them back from exile. You can tutor them up with Manipulate Fate, which is a 1 and blue instant that says you can exile cards from your library and draw a card. So you can kind of tutor that up. But otherwise, it's just kind of a bug value deck. It's playing all the good cards in Legacy in those 3 colors.
Yeah, it takes full advantage of Baleful Strix, Force of Will, as we just saw here, Deathrite Shaman.
Yep, Sylvan Library. There might be a sneaky Leovold or 2 in this list. Being one of the best bug creatures you can ever play, and plus you're obviously playing Brainstorm, Ponder, maybe even a couple of Preordains if you're lucky. But yeah, it's just it can just win by just being good, which is what good combo decks in Legacy are. You know, they can kill by value as well as the combo.
Yeah, and on the other side of that we have Legendary Mud. And how does Legendary Mud, mud being the namesake for those old artifact frames, being just dirt brown. How does Legendary Mud differ from a more traditional mud build that you see that used to be a little bit more common?
Yeah, well, so there was this is another name for 12 post, because you're playing Vesuva's Cloud Post and another Cloud Post.
The Gain Life one?
Yeah, the Gain Life one. So you're playing a couple of Cloud Posts and you're playing Vesuva to copy those Cloud Posts. You also, some people go super deep on it and play Thespian Stage as well, just to get that huge amount of mana. This one is a little bit more similar to sort of Tron in Modern, where you're just playing giant creatures, you're getting the big lands, and you're getting these ramp artifacts, and then you're not that Tron gets big ramp artifacts, but this is how Legacy does it, and just playing out some big creatures.
Yeah, well, not only is it similar to Tron, it's directly similar to Eldrazi Tron, which uses Eldrazi Temple as another soul land to power out just the hugely powerful cards that you see in forms of Thought-Knot Seer and Endbringer and Kozilek, Ulamog.
Yeah.
Ulamog, big exile one. And it's just another soul land. So
yeah, absolutely.
It lets you really power out some of this stuff. Legendary Mud also plays Trinisphere, Chalice, and
I think that's probably the only. Yeah, it's mostly
so like
these you're playing these Grim Monoliths as well, and you're playing a Voltaic Key to untap the Grim Monolith. We did see a couple of little spicy bits of interaction here. First of all, we sacrifice the Shardless Agent to get enough mana to cast Misthollow Griffin, which is a bit of a combo in itself because now you got a 3/3 flyer, and he can sort of do the combo at any point, so that's relevant to mention. But also, Stephen was able to tap his Grim Monolith, untap it with Voltaic Key, tap it again, float a bit of mana, and then turn his Ayavugan into a Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. So he'll be able to cast that this turn.
That's another huge draw for Legendary Mud. Is not only that does it get another soul land in the form of Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah.
It also has a tutor effect in the form of Ayavugan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's huge. And it's why it was banned in Modern.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is really taking it to its fullest potential, trying to cast the biggest creatures in the game. Endbringer, notably not the biggest creature in the game, but definitely one of the best.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be able to wreak a little bit of havoc, both in terms of card advantage and, I mean, hopefully pinging Beckett.
It's a lot better in sort of lower to the ground aggro builds, but I mean, it's going to be just fine here. He's going to be able to draw some cards and ping his opponent. This is Manipulate Fate, the card that we saw before, so he's going to be able to get some, essentially, this is a strictly better Squadron Hawk, because he's going to be able to sack his Misthollow Griffin for infinite mana, play the rest of his Misthollow Griffins, and then just pass the turn.
Yeah, you know you're in for a good time when, instead of using the infinite mana that you can clearly make, you're just going to make a army of 3/3 flying griffins.
Yeah, and 3/3 is like not something to sneeze at, especially while Steven's on 15 life. We're swinging him for 12 next turn, so he might be on the ropes here. He might have to exile a couple of Misthollow Griffins just to give them summoning sickness, but Ulamog, not the best card in this matchup.
I mean, it does deal with the food chain, which we will probably see here. And the other important thing to note is that it's a cast trigger.
Yeah.
And because it's a cast trigger, the Force of Wills that are just kind of sitting in Beckett's hand will deal with the giant creature, but they will not deal with, dealing with a combo. And not only does it cut him off a color, but it cuts him off of the infinite mana, so that if you just top decks the Walking Ballista, he doesn't just win on the spot. He's still not in a great position because, Griffins have flying.
Yep.
But it's a start.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was able to stop himself from dying immediately, depending on the top of Beckett's deck. But Beckett really had to counter that Ulamog. There was probably not a whole lot of other things that he would want to counter more than that Ulamog. Yeah,
the important thing to note is that he is also on 10.
Yeah, exactly. One swing from that Ulamog is lights out. So he would, definitely a good choice from Beckett. I mean, there's probably no other choice, but it was a good choice nevertheless. I think he's got one more Force of Will in his hand, which isn't going to do very much by itself. But it seems that Steven's just going to play out this Chalice for 1, stop any future brainstorms from happening. Yeah.
What else does the deck play for 1? Thoughtseize, which doesn't seem super impactful because he doesn't really have a hand.
Yeah. It's probably just to stop cantrips at this point. I mean, you might play a Fatal Push or 2, just being a good value deck. But if he's playing Deathray Shaman, he's not going to be able to play it.
Deathray Shaman's another good choice.
Yeah.
The other thing is that he can do it for 1. And that's, an efficient use of his mana. If he loses, if Beckett top decks a Thoughtseize, then he just loses out on it. So it's better just to play it, especially when it doesn't affect him, because he's already got a Voltaic Key in play, so he doesn't really need another one.
Yeah, that's it. I think he was trying to decide whether or not he wanted to swing with the Endbringer, but I think just in the face of double blocking and only losing one Misthollow Griffin and still swinging in for a bunch, it just was going to make it a little bit harder. But he is going to come in for 9, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, he still puts Steven on a 2-turn clock. Endbringer did a little bit of work in that it made it so that one Griffin could not attack.
Yeah.
Because that's what one of the mini abilities on Endbringer says. But he's going to have a hard time
stopping the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. he is going to opt to swing in from here. He is able to untap and stop another Misthollow from attacking, but he needs to bring something out to stop these from the rest of these Misthollows from killing him, because Beckett only has to connect with 2.
Yeah, Steven doesn't look like he's in the best position. We don't really know what the card he drew was, but I can't really imagine what it is that saves him at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. He can swing with, because Endbring is a 5/5, right?
Yeah, which I think he's done.
Yeah. Okay, so it's going to be still pretty hard to come back from this one.
Another Ulamog might actually be okay in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that it can exile some of the Griffins, and he can Endbringer in order... Ooh, Batter Skull. Not going to be super useful, but like... Oh, can he equip it? If he can equip it, then it is distinctly
useful. Ooh, and then
useful.
he gains a bit of lifelink, right? From
the
ping?
But he can't.
He can't. He doesn't have the mana for it, unfortunately. But
the saddest story ever told.
Yeah, I think we're just making the Misthollow Griffin not attack, and then Beckett's going to come in for 9, and then I think Steven will just back it up. Yep, fair enough. No amount of Batter Skulls can get you out of this one. It would be a good idea in the future, though, to get equipping. Coming out of sideboards, I mean, if we're playing anything like the sort of Eldrazi Tron in Modern, then we might probably consider the Basilisk. He's looking at a Khan. He's thinking about it. Khan's not great against the other list, but it looks like Beckett's bringing in some interesting choices. He brought in the Engineered Plague, and he looks like he's also bringing in some Abrupt Decays as well, probably just for some lock pieces that Steve might be considering.
And, oh shoot, I've forgotten the name, but he's bringing in Bloodghast.
Okay. An interesting choice.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea, just because Steven may be able to ping for 1 with Endbringer, or he may be able to Chalice for 2 if he ever felt inclined. But that recursion is going to be pretty powerful for Beckett, especially if he can get it on the board early.
Yeah.
And, playing lands is a fundamental part of this game, and every time he plays a land, he can bring back that fun zombie. So it looked like Steven was actually taking out...
That's an interesting choice, but I respect it nonetheless.
I think it comes down to the grind.
Yeah, sure.
And I think he's aware that the things that he is playing, he's going to have to deal with things like Trinisphere or Chalice or just other artifact hate cards.
Yeah.
And... I mean, Bloodghast does have that recursion, and it can be killed and still be relevant.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's fine.
Okay. What do you think about Engineered Plague? What's the thought behind it? I mean, it's definitely a tribal deck, but is the difference between 1 and 2 life going to matter?
I think it might slow... Steven down a bit. I don't think it's necessarily a good choice, but it might give Beckett the time he needs to deal with Steven's just life total through the Flyers.
Okay.
The other thing to note is that it changes Endbringer from a 5/5, which is pretty huge, to a 4/4, which... that changes the whole clock for how many times it has to connect for you to lose.
Okay.
And it actually changes Thought Not Seer from a 4/4 to a 3/3, which is infinitely better for Beckett because
he can block.
He's Griffins
profitably block. Yeah, okay, sure.
Tasty 3/3s.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily agree with the choice, but I think he probably has some dead cards. And
there's probably a lot of cards that he just needs to take out.
It's better to remove those cards. It looked like Steven actually took out Ulamog, and he took out Voltaic Key.
An interesting choice as well. I like the Voltaic Key, but I think he might be sort of trying to play Chalice on 1 a little bit harder and doesn't want to get blown out by having to choose between Voltaic Key and Chalice.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that he's probably bringing in more answers than... kind of dirtily cards. Voltaic Key is a great card, but it has really one very, very important interaction in the form of...
untapping Grim Monolith.
Yeah. If he can't do that, it's kind of a dead card sometimes.
Okay.
And
that's reasonable.
When he's under a fair amount of pressure, I think it's totally reasonable.
Yeah, for sure.
Starting with the Chalice is a good way to begin, but of course the blue player has the Force of Will.
Of course. Why not? This is Legacy, the turn 0 format. And also getting the double value from exiling the Misthollow Griffin that he'll be able to cast later. So no downside. No downside.
This
is going to make the things a little bit harder. It looks like Beckett might let this one resolve unless he finds another Force of Will at the top, but he's most likely just doing this because he doesn't think he's going to be able to pay 3 mana for a Brainstorm ever again.
The other thing that's kind of a pain is looking at Beckett's hand. It's all 1-drops, which is pretty inconvenient.
Oh yeah, I think he does have Food Chain in there that he might be getting rid of, but he's decided to keep the Brainstorms in hand. So
I think he actually got rid of the Duresses. So he wanted to draw one Duress, but also he put the other one away because it's kind of a useless card right now.
Sure.
As Steven is going to get a chance to really progress his board, and I mean now he has a giant creature that Beckett suddenly can't Force of Will because he has to pay 3.
Yep.
And it's a bad time for him.
Yeah, exactly. He has a one of his signature cloud posts come in tapped, and he's going to pay 4 life and 4 mana for this Thought-Knot Seer, but I think it's okay. I think we're okay with it. And Beckett seems to be deciding whether or not he wants to do anything about it, but with a hand of no Force of Will, he doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah, and he got rid of the other piece of the combo, and the Murderous Cut actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think he was probably trying to decide whether or not what happens with the interaction. This does come up quite often. You can't actually stop the ETB from happening no matter what. You can Murderous Cut in response, and you will eventually draw a card, but I think maybe Beckett really wanted that Food Chain, so maybe giving him the opportunity to take the Murderous Cut to keep his Thought-Knot Seer alive and leave the Food Chain in play gives him a little bit more gas in the future.
Yeah, and can he play that Murderous Cut for just black and exiling cards in his graveyard? I think so, right? Because that's just it's not an alternative casting cost. It just reduces the cost of that. That's an interesting interaction.
Yeah,
and
I'm usually the rule of Trinisphere is you must pay 3. If something costs less than 3, then you must pay 3, and usually it says the alternate that the adding of Trinisphere mana is added at the end, but it doesn't. I mean, the spell is still like it's an expensive spell. It's just it's letting you pay with your delve cost instead, but that's okay. It seemed to be enough for our players to go on to game 3 with Steven taking the game away from Beckett on that one. Thought-Knot Seer was just enough.
So, I just looked it up, and because Delve no longer reduces the total cost of the spell, it means that Trinisphere, after checking it, will just see that it is above 3. So you can, in fact, Murderous Cut for just black.
Okay, cool.
Because you're exiling from the thing, and that's just part of how you're paying for that mana. Cause
each one. I thought that might have,
basically works for 1 mana. So
also Delve being like super good in this deck as well, because you're kind of okay with things being exiled from your graveyard, so you can cast them again.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with Beckett's deck just because there's so many interesting ways for him to just get a little bit of value. Yeah. And you see this in a lot of interactions. You see this in Reanimator with Faithless Looting and getting rid of your fatties.
Synergy.
You see this in Food Chain and Force of Willing your blue spell, which happens to be a Griffin. You getting value means that the downside of these cards that are going to be more powerful because there is a downside no longer applies.
Yeah, exactly. And you're taking away the downside and making it just another plus for you.
And that's both good deck construction, but also that's why I really like these kind of decks, is that they're eking out as much value as possible. Yeah. And to have that combo finish just to, randomly have it sometimes.
Sometimes good to have AI win button, that's for sure.
I miss Splinter Twin.
Forgot to mention, shout out to Adelaide Eternal, who's showing off their playmat on the screen. We'll link them in the footnotes. They have a beautiful in-depth guide for a lot of different Highlander decks, if that's what tickles your fancy. And they have a huge showing of other videos as well. So please feel free to check them out, as they are one of our friends and partners. So definitely check that out. With the Eternal Scourge, not speaking of intense value, we're not really seeing it with this Eternal Scourge. It's just coming out. I mean, it may as well be on the battlefield, right? It serves no use in Beckett's hand, so we may as well just cast it. If he dies, he can eat it with Deathrite Shaman, gain a bit of life, and then cast it later. Like, at this point, you just want to play it. You may as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still, a beater.
Still beats face, yeah.
I mean, Thought-Knot Seer is a bit of a wall here, especially with 2/2s. He does have a Strix, so he's going to be able to put a little bit of pressure on, but, I mean, a 20-turn clock is no clock at all, really.
Well, I mean, you probably just hold it up so that Steven can't attack with this Thought-Knot Seer. Like, there was a small chance that Thought-Knot Seer could get lost somewhere else if he decided to attack, but this Baleful Strix is just going to be on blocking duty for the rest of the game, I think. Here comes the Misthollow Griffin, the another card that you can cast from exile. Now it's just mono value for Beckett, because he's going to be able to just chump if he wants. He doesn't have to, but he can. And then eat it with the Deathrite Shaman, as I said before, and then just get it back again next turn. So it kind of is going to work out pretty well from Beckett from here, but this Walking Ballista might say otherwise.
Yeah, Walking Ballista with Cloud Post is a pretty good combo. Although he did deal with the Baleful Strix. I mean, the reasons that he's not, throwing it and trying to put some form of clock on Beckett is just because he can double block. But also, Beckett kind of has a soft lock in the form of blocking with the Eternal Scourge, exiling it, gaining 2 life from Deathrite Shaman, and then recasting it all in one turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that just essentially means that, Beckett is
pretty immune.
Yeah, pretty immune.
It looks like Steven has another Walking Ballista in hand, and we'll see what we name with the Sorcerer's Spyglass, but there's not a whole lot you can name. I mean, Beckett's doing the right thing and fetching before it resolves, because you could very well name Misty Rainforest, but besides Deathrite Shaman and Fetchlands, he doesn't actually have any targets for Sorcerer's Spyglass.
Well, I mean, he can choose Food Chain in case he draws it, but I think the choice...
He will not have a good time, unfortunately, because Food Chain is a mana ability.
Oh.
Fun fact. Yeah. People, including your boy Angus, has definitely been caught out by the Food Chain interaction.
You would have called me out very easily.
That's the good thing about these super niche cards. You can just... it seems that he exiled the Misthollow Griffin to untap it, if I'm not mistaken.
It has super vigilance. It's pretty great.
Yeah, we definitely saw some sort of action like this in our last video, where you're able to attack with the Misthollow Griffin, exile it, then get it back, lose the mana, but gain vigilance. So pay 0 mana, gain vigilance. I'll take that.
Yeah, and I mean, Beckett's deck is doing a pretty good showing. Although on the other side of that, Steven has been able to recover pretty marvelously from being wastelanded. Yeah. And, at one point, actually only having a Chalice and a Thought-Knot Seer in play. So
he definitely has a lot of mana coming out of his side as well. So he's probably going to play... He can possibly hold on and play the Thought-Knot Seer now, or he could... just slam down this Walking Ballista for... Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much. We do have a Vesuva, we have a Cloud Post, and a Glimmer Post, and an Eldrazi Temple, or I think so. At least 5, maybe 6. But that Walking Ballista for 3 is not too bad. It definitely kills a Deathrite Shaman, but it seems he's taking care of the Deathrite Shaman anyway. And we're just going to play out the Thought-Knot Seer. I think that's probably correct. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. I mean, he's gotten rid of that soft lock, which is kind of really bad for him in that Beckett can just constantly gain life. But he's still not in a good position because Beckett does have the combo.
Yeah.
It's... Oh, he has to see his lands, which, because of the interactions that you have between Cloud Posts, means that actual Cloud Post gives you 1 mana for each each locust.
Each locust. And locust is a land type of these two Cloud Posts.
And because Vesuva makes a copy of that, it can get pretty wild pretty quickly, and he does have some Glimmer Posts, which are the ones that gain life for each locust you have.
Yeah, getting just a little bit of advantage, but also just being that 4th to 8th copy of a locust land to power up his Cloud Post.
And this is the big difference between the modern version, which is Eldrazi Tron, and these mud decks, is that they don't need to find the Tron pieces. They don't need the
have the redundancy, absolutely.
Different ones, because all of the locusts have value. Cloud Post is the payoff, but also the other ones, they count.
Yeah, they give you value, absolutely.
And Thespian Stage is almost...
Yeah. I mean, if you could play Eye of Ugin... Can you play Eye of Ugin in Modern?
No, it got banned. Because of Eldrazi Winter. We don't talk about that.
If you could play both the Soul Lands, the City of Traders, and Ancient Tomb, as well as Eye of Ugin, as well as these Locust lands, then you don't really need a Expedition map or Ancient Stirrings. You have that redundancy where it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, there was a reason that there's a period in time for Modern's history called Eldrazi Winter, because it was a harsh place.
Yeah, it was a cold place.
Yeah. Eldrazi Mimics, 3 Eldrazi Mimics, turn 1. It was a bad time.
I think we might be... I wonder if we're going to... No, we definitely don't name Construct with this Engineer Plague, do we? It's a good meme, but you probably just don't. It's too cute to be true. The Thought-Knot Seer being a 3/3 is definitely reasonable enough to always have your Misthollow Griffin up.
It also makes his Eternal Scourge. I have such a hard time with that word.
Scourge, yeah. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, well that's definitely a reason to name Construct. So we'll see. You can only get 3 pumps out of it.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that it does remove essentially a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista. But making Thought-Knot Seer a 3/3 is also kind of a huge boon, because giving -1/-1 to your own Eternal Scourge isn't a big deal when you can cast it infinitely.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's completely reasonable. I think he might have been okay with naming Construct, considering the amount of Baleful Strixes that he had to block the Thought-Knot Seer. Might not have been too much of an issue, but we're seeing that Steven's not letting it haunt him at all, because he's being able to generate so much mana out of these Cloud Posts that he can just keep ticking up Walking Ballista and keep taking out the non-exile creatures, and then just hopefully deal with the rest.
This has been a pretty good game, because the swings have been huge, even though Steven for quite a while didn't look like he had a great board position. That Walking Ballista can single-handedly win him the
game. Walking Ballista getting in. That's it.
If it does not get dealt with pretty soon.
Yeah. However, we have established infinite mana and infinite Misthollow Griffins, so...
The best army.
Yeah, exactly. This could be the Squadron Hawk that ends the game, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see what Steven rips off the top. He does have a lot of huge lands and a lot of capability for those huge lands. Unfortunately, top decking another land is not where he wants to be.
No. It depends on what he brought in, but yeah. Anything other than a land may have been good.
Yeah, well, the top decks when you're playing Legendary Mud are insane, because you're able to, if he gets a Kozilek, he can refill his hand. If he gets an Emrakul, he can take an extra turn, but it looks like he's not able to piece it together before these Misthollow Griffins are going to swing in, so he's going to have to pack it up, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the strength of Vood Chain, is that even if you don't have the combo established, you have a grindy deck.
Yeah.
But when the combo is established, it's just so hard to deal with something, because even what we consider often the most extreme version of getting rid of a card, exile, is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would be keeping an eye on Food Chain if I were you viewers at home, because this could be a one of the secret best decks. It's done a great showing on both of our videos. You can see it's the amount of value that it's getting, and it's just been like hiding down behind the radar. So maybe keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that besides the Misthollow Griffins, which often actually show themselves off, and Food Chain, which sometimes you can just use for value, you are playing just actually good cards.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of other combo decks tend to have to play a little bit worse.
Yeah,
in card quality. And you don't have that.
Because you're not necessarily trying to piece the combo together. You're just like, it just happens eventually and you're happy for it, but you're still fighting your way through no matter what.
Yeah. So, good job, Beckett. Good job, Steven, as well. You drew a lot of lands, friend.
Thank you so much once again for listening to CBR MTG. My name is Angus Mackay. I'm joined here by Frank Karamarudas.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.